Team memory sharing and serendipity in hybrid workplaces. I realise it's not a very catchy title, but hey. So before I begin, I'm Emily. I'm from the UK. I grew up in London, and I now live just outside Liverpool in the northwest of England. So I will try not to talk too fast, and I'll try not to talk in my London accent. I'll introduce myself properly in a moment. So let me set the scene. This was office life before 2020. Yeah. Everything was great. It was like a 24-hour party. Okay, maybe not. Then the pandemic changed the conversation, and it changed some things in a really big way. For some people, for others, it might have meant the rest of the world was catching up because we worked in those kind of ways before. But it really is the biggest impact on how we work today. And if you read any of the kind of business blogs or ways of working blogs, they are always talking about this, hybrid working, remote working, in-person working, and everything that comes around it as well. So before I begin, I just want to understand a bit about you as well. So a quick question about your workplace. And as it's early, I'm going to ask people to stand up, but hold on. So stand up if you work mostly remote, so you're mostly working away from the office with maybe a few days in. Okay, got a few. Brilliant. Is that newish? New in the last few years? No. Okay, you can sit down. Who works mostly in hybrid working, so some days away from the office and some days in the office a week? Quite a lot of you. Right, you can sit down. And who works full-time in one place, in their office? Oh, we've got a few fully in person. Brilliant, thank you. And there's probably a few of us that work across. Anyone work across organisations, so just different places? I'm looking at you lot over there mostly. Okay, thank you. So hi, I'm Emily. This is me. I used to work in an office. This is me working in an office. This was about 10 years ago. So this is my last job before I became an independent consultant. So I am an organisational consultant. My company is called Tacit, which I think is a complicated word if you're an English native speaker and very complicated if you're not, but anyway. My focus is creating environments where people can thrive so that organisations can thrive. And I do anything from organisational structures, helping leaderships articulate and communicate where they're trying to get to, what they're trying to achieve to help align organisations. I work with growing capability, learning and development, ways of working, joining people up through communities of practice, and setting up the environment for all good, agile, lean, and iterative approaches by happy people. I work quite a lot with UK government and some other organisations as well. So until early 2015, I worked in an office. This was me. I was the head of agile delivery at Government Digital Service in the UK. And since then, I haven't really worked in an office, like a lot of people. So over the last couple of years, our work has shifted. Lots of change. Lots of people who were suddenly working from home that hadn't before. In March 2020, I'd been going to work in an office in Mumbai on a regular basis. And it was a massive change for them. They were very kind of face-to-face business. They did a lot of business over food, fantastic canteens in that office. I remember a designer that I was working with, she had just moved away from Mumbai and she wanted to work remotely, and they said, absolutely no way. And she left, and then the pandemic hit, and then everyone was working remotely. So this home work-life balance continues to permeate the conversation about work today. So we really felt the benefits of remote working. Got some articles here. You may remember right at the beginning of the pandemic, we were saying stuff like this. 6 out of 10 remote workers reported they're more productive working from home than expected. They don't have the commute, and they gain back time lost from in-person distractions and interruptions. Or generally speaking, remote employees report a much higher job satisfaction than those in a central office place, and that morale boost leads to more employee engagement. And there was a lot of that. Some of it felt like we may be trying to justify that situation we were in, and some of it, there's some research on some of it as well. More recently, over the past year or so, we've seen these big back to work statements from big organizations. Lots of things like this. So Amazon was saying, it's easier to model, practice, and strengthen our culture when we're in the office together most of the time, surrounded by our colleagues. Apple was saying this was their 3-day-a-week back in the office initiatives, enhancing agility to work flexibility whilst preserving the in-person collaboration that's essential to our culture. And Meta, picked all the worst companies, I'm sorry. Meta was saying engineers early in their career perform better on average when they work in person with teammates at least 3 days a week. So there was a lot of that around there. And it's definitely nothing to do with trust. You get this Simpsons reference, right? Yeah, good. Interestingly, I keep seeing a lot of talk about a growing movement to track employee productivity through different technologies such as desktop surveillance, biometric smart badges, location tracking, or desk heat sensors. I know people that are, I've met people that are concerned about making sure that their green dot is online on Teams, otherwise it's seen as bad. Does anyone have anything like that? Hopefully your offices are a little bit not doing that. It happens. So this back to office, many people have given reasons why this is good. It continues to cause a stir in the press. So there's headlines like why it's bad, even, wrong way around. Headlines like return to office mandate, how to lose your best performers, return to office mandates are bad for employees and innovation, and half of UK professionals might quit if ordered back into the office, a poll shows. And other people saying it's good. So, it was harder to find these articles, and I don't think it's because there's fewer people that think it. I think it's more that it's more sensational to say it's bad and all the reasons why it's bad, and everyone might walk out and everyone might quit. So 18 overlooked benefits of returning to the office for work and why you might actually want to go back into the office. Anecdotally, I hear people talking lots about wanting the connection that they didn't have, particularly during the pandemic. And whatever happens now, people are unlikely to be all working in the same place at the same time all of the time. I saw some article saying 25% of the day's workers' work are performed in a remote way, and before the pandemic this was 5%, and this 25% is fairly stable. Some people use the pandemic to hire all over the place, so they physically can't get people into the same place anymore. A lot of the government organisations I work with, they went through, they were doing this before the pandemic, but particularly during the pandemic, they selling off office space. They literally physically don't have the space to house everyone, so they end up doing this kind of timeshare thing. I think so I'm not going to talk about whether we should be in the office or shouldn't be in the office. There's lots of pros and cons for many different scenarios, and there's research going on to prove the value in both. That's it. I saw something about, I think it was the US federal workers ordered back into the office and they found there weren't enough desks, Wi-Fi or toilet paper. So they just couldn't physically work. I see a lot of people they go into the office and they end up being on video calls with people who aren't in the office. So you go to work, sit at your desk, there's nods around. So other people see that as well. But this is the reality, so how do we deal with it? So I've been thinking about a lot of this for a long time. So as I said, I haven't worked in an office for 10 years. And during that time, I've worked with places that are distributed anyway, and I've worked with organizations on how do we do hybrid meetings, hybrid show and tells, communication and facilitation, whilst trying not to leave people behind that aren't there. I've also been running a distributed community and meetup for 7 years now called Agila in the Ether, which I started because I was doing an in-person meetup and I just didn't have the time to travel. So I moved it online in 2018. And I've seen people form really meaningful connections without ever physically meeting each other. So I know it's possible. So this talk is help me articulate what was on my mind and gather some strategies. I think that's fizzy. I'm just going to... Sorry, I don't want to drink fizzy water whilst I'm talking? That could be bad. Okay. One thing working home a lot is my voice is not up to speaking for long periods of time. Okay, so I had a question which was, in a hybrid environment, how do people share information, keep connected, and bump into things? So I was mulling on this question. I also asked people on social media what they had tried too, and I got lots of different responses. Lots of people were interested in this, and I'm not going to go through all of their answers. What I'm going to do is sum up, bring that together with what I've learned, and share some ideas with you, and the reasons behind those ideas, and some things that you might try out. You might be doing already, but I'm not going to give you all the answers. What I want to do is share a framework for thinking, which is something that I use and others have started to use before. And although most of you were working remote or hybrid, so this is useful for you, it's also useful for other people as well, and everyone. This way of connecting is useful for anyone, even if you're face to face. I wanted to talk about walls. So when I asked this question on social media, lots of people talked about walls. And why walls? Okay, so does anyone have walls in their office that look like this? Lots of stuff on them, a few people. Did any of them use it before when you were all co-located? Did you have walls like this? Some, few. So walls did some really, and this wall here was the last job I had, last job I had 10 years ago in an office. This was the portfolio wall of all the work that was going on at GDS at the time. So walls did really heavy lifting when people were in the same place for information sharing, staying connected, bump into things, get people talking around it, seeing what's coming up. This wall is a portfolio view and cross-prioritization for GDS. So when I joined there were lots of things going on. GovUK, which is the government website in the UK, had just launched, and there was just no one knew everything that was going on. There was lots of things that popped up. So we wanted to make it really clear, what people should focus on, and so we ended up getting everything that was happening and putting it on a wall, and people would have conversations around it, give a general sense of what's happening, and we had some digital backup for reporting purposes, and I was always jumping up and talking to people about it. That picture there is me being interviewed by the Guardian newspaper, who came in, wanted to look at it, and there was just the picture on the bottom right. It's just one I found on Flickr. People used to just come in and take photos of it, and it was great, but it also gave people an idea of what was happening and what was coming up. Really useful when you're co-located. So a lot of people then, when I asked the question about how do you bump into information, a lot of people said, oh, whiteboards. And I think Miro is great, but the answer isn't Miro. And the challenge is, with digital boards, do people use digital whiteboards? It's really, they're not very discoverable. So it's great for doing collaborating, sketching things out, documenting, but it's really hidden, so you don't just stumble across them, or they're massive and you end up like zooming out of this huge wall and you can't really find anything. So bumping into things is a really important part of how we stay connected. So digital whiteboards are great, but they don't really replicate physical ones. So what do we need to consider explicitly in hybrid environments? So what are the things that are missing when we're not in the same space that maybe we had when we were co-located? So when people could bump into things more easily, or you had those spaces between meetings, those liminal spaces where you bumped into people and just had chats, or meetings or breaks. So we need to find new ways to achieve some of these same things if we're not doing that already. Before I jump into those, here's just some considerations I wanted to add for sharing information, which is useful to have in your mind. Those are, go to where people are. So if people aren't in the office, you need to get information to them. People don't always come to information. So if you say, well, it's on the wiki, they're not necessarily going to find it. The next thing is little and often. So don't overwhelm people with loads of things. They won't remember it all. The amount of times you tell people stuff and you think, oh, why didn't they remember all of that? So because we can't take on that much information. So little and often is useful. And the last one is repeat, repeat, repeat. We need to hear the same message multiple times for it to start to sink in. And it needs to be played out in behaviors and it needs to be part of the everyday and regular patterns so people will pick it up. So these are useful. This is whether you're talking about communication in your team, outside your team, wider, those kind of things. So so back to the 3 questions. So I talked about how do we share information, keep connected and bump into things. So I've set some strategies out in 3 different sections and I'm going to go through those for the rest of this talk. So my question is, how do we maintain and reinforce team memory? How do we join up across the organizations? And how do we create opportunities for serendipity? So I said I'll go through each of these and give you some strategies to think about, hopefully are useful for you. So the first one is maintaining and reinforcing team memory. So I got very excited about keynote animations. So they give me some joy. So I suspect most of you do this in your teams anyway, and I want to put some language around it in case it helps you. So this is about keeping everyone focused, aligned, truly collaborative, creating shared responsibility and the resilience of teams through changes. And there's 3 types of memories that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about active memory, transactive memory, and long-term memory. Now, transactive memory was a new term for me when I came across it when I was first researching for this talk. And I'll explain what it means in case it's new for you. Is anyone familiar with that word? Okay, gets to teach you a new thing. That's great. So active memory is the things a team needs to keep readily available to inform their work. So it includes things like what are you working on now, your current goal, your team vision, decisions you recently made, which users or customers you're focusing on, who do you regularly work with, assets you're using, team charter, all of the things that describe your team to yourself or anyone that comes across it. So you can think about your teams now. So now is the things that you look at all the time, you make a habit of reviewing. So it could be your physical or digital work board. So your workflow where you keep your work, you might have some high-level messages, visions and goals, who you work with, your active workings, that kind of stuff. Your norms are your team's cultural norms. So this is how you work together. So you may have specific things that you do, ways that you write comments on tickets, maybe you have creative time for thinking, maybe you have morning coffee together, learning time, stand-up retrospective, demos, pairing, how you do meetings, where you keep your knowledge repositories, that kind of stuff. You may document some of that, or it might just live in your conversations and your actions. So if they're really important, you may have a guardian that looks after some of these things, so someone that runs your stand-ups or meetings, or someone that makes sure some of those things happen. And then your narrative, which is your story as you go. So things like show and tells, which is the story of what you've learnt and what you've done or not done, and demos. Do you all do show and tells, regular show and tells here with your teams? Anyone? A couple of people? Just a couple of people. That picture at the bottom is me again. It's lots of photos of me many years ago. This was me doing a hybrid show and tell format in 2018, which was a team just every week talking about what they'd learned and the work that they'd done, just to bring people along with them. And it's a really great opportunity for other teams to just get a sense of what you're doing, and also see if there's sometimes there's crossover that you didn't realize that gives people an opportunity to say, hey, can we talk about this later? You may have a team page that has what you're up to, and creating a habit of looking at it first thing in the morning or updating it is very useful. This is useful for people following your journey, your collaborators or stakeholders. So for all of this, if you're any of these things, if you're not doing them, it's worth looking into. It's making sure that you always have a chance to review everything. So every day you're looking, it's like it's in front of you every day. Even if you're doing stand-ups remotely or hybrid, you're taking a look at it. The next thing is transactive memory. So transactive memory or transactive memory systems is a system for understanding how each person contributes to your team as a whole. So this includes who on the team knows what, how you work together, the trust between you, understanding between each other. And it's especially important if you don't spend a lot of face-to-face time together, because you need to spend extra time on building this. So I'll try and explain how it works. So any team, I'm assuming you're mostly on Teams? Teams, yes. Any team needs a mix of knowledge, skills, experience, and responsibilities. So here we have our team. They have different animals in different colours, the things that they know about, maybe their responsibilities. And each of their skills and experience contribute to the whole. This is actually true of a team, it's true of any group of people, so it could be a family unit. Not everyone needs to be an expert in everything because you have this, and that's okay. But what you do need is to know where to find the information that you don't know. So your transactive memory is it's like a index of where to go to find things that you don't know. So I didn't need to know how to get to Örebro. I had Google Maps and various websites to help me do that. In your office, in your workplace, you might know who books. You might not know how to book meeting rooms, but who can book them, or you know the team that might be deploying code, or you'll know where to go to get things. If we put that into the team context, we get the transactive memory system. So a team that works regularly together is part of this system. So in your team, you know what you know, and you will know what other people know, and they will know what you know, and it becomes this system, this transactive memory system. So it's a collective system for encoding, storing, accessing, and updating information in social systems. And it includes the memories stored in each individual, the interactions between them, and the processes that update that memory as well. And the term was created in 1985 as a response to groupthink. And field studies of transactive memory in small groups have linked the existence of transactive memory to improved performance in tasks such as consulting, product assembly, and software development. What's really key, and this is when I learned this term, I was like, it's really useful what happens when somebody changes on a team. So I've definitely been in situations where I'm just thrown into a team, and now you're on a team, and you've got to work out what's going on. But what really happens is you're breaking your transactive memory system when somebody new joins the team. So you need to take time to rebuild that system. To work out what's changed, what's shifted, work out where that person fits in. Maybe they've got different skills that they bring to the table, and maybe things will shift around. So you need to if someone changes, spend that time doing that. And there are three elements of transactive memory systems. So knowledge or memory specialization. So people have specialisms. Team credibility, so trusting that each other have those specialisms. And team coordination and collaboration. So the things that you need for the team to work together, to work smoothly and efficiently together. And there are some tools that are useful for that. So here's some that I use. So there's capability combs, which is, we're sharing a link at the end that has a download that has all of these tools in it in case you want to look at that. That's a way of looking at the team, finding out who knows what, who can lead on what, where there's opportunities to learn, so where people want to learn new things and where you can pair people up. Team manuals, which is a really great way of building empathy on teams and a chance to build team norms, which is where you talk about the ways that you work. You all talk about the ways that you work in your team, and you work out where they overlap. My favorite question on there is, what time of day do you like to work? Because I'm a morning person, as everyone I've spoken to today is definitely not. And when you're working on a team, it's good to know those patterns and how people work. And things like deliberate practice, so test incidents and hackathons, practicing coding and practicing things that you need to do at work, are a really great way of, first of all, building new skills, but also finding out how you work together, what skills people have that are kind of not necessarily easy to write down, but you work out when you're working together. So when you're onboarding new people, you need to kind of think about doing some of those things. So I've talked about active memory and transactive memory. So long-term memory is the story you want to tell about your team's journey. This includes where you've got to from when you started to now, what decisions you made along the way, how team membership changed over time, team wins and celebrations, and you can use these to help stay on target when new people join the team, new stakeholders, and also a way to remind yourself how far you've come. So there's great things you can do there, like project stories. Do people keep project stories, like history of what you've been up to somewhere? This is a really great exercise to do, to say, where have we come from? What have we learned along the way? How can people easily access that information? This is a blog post from Marianne Briley at DXW. Again, I'll share a link at the end. Or team timelines. Does anyone do team timeline retrospectives? It's a great way to go, let's look back over a period of time. Let's see what happened. Let's see what we achieved along the way. Someone I was talking to the other day said they did this and they'd completely forgotten all the great things they'd done. They're so hung up on the things that were going wrong. It was a great chance to go, wow, look at all this great stuff. So don't forget to celebrate your achievements. We become more motivated when we can see what we've achieved and we can share that with others. We do get bogged down in the day-to-day. Does anyone ever look back and say, oh my God, look at all the stuff we've done. Isn't that brilliant? If you do that together, it's a great chance to celebrate. So with team memory, does your team have practices and habits to keep your team informed and connected? Do you have, what's that? So are you doing your regular patterns, your norms, your narrative? Do you have space to build and strengthen your transactive memory system? So practices and habits that help you keep building that, understand how each other work, how everything. And do you have time to reflect on and celebrate your journey? So if you don't have that in your team right now, make time for doing that. Remember to look back, see how far you've come, what you've achieved along the way, and share it with yourselves and share it with other people. Okay. So we talked about maintaining and reinforcing memory, team memory. I'm now going to talk about joining up across the organization. So 3 different ways. We have different patterns and habits in hybrid organizations, which means we're unlikely to interact with each other as much as we did before. It's kind of hard, it's harder. So we have to be really purposeful about connecting people. The 3 things that I want to talk about are aligning everyone, joining up teams, and bridging silos. So first up, aligning everyone. So this is about a shared purpose and direction across a whole organization. So does everyone know what you're trying to achieve, what your vision is, purpose, values, how you fit into the org goals, and why? Does everyone know how they fit into their can everyone recite their organizational vision, yeah? I was once speaking to someone, I was at a conference, and they were telling me about a well-known speaker that had come and given a talk at their values day. And I said, oh, what's your values day? And they said, we have a values day every year. It's the day when we live our company values. Completely straight-faced. Amazing. So having team organizational cadence like a team cadence can really help with alignment, engagement, and communication around it. And this is true of the whole organization. And if you're in a team, you can take advantage of using these platforms as well. So in the top left here, this was the monthly all-hands meeting when I was working at Government Digital Service. So we would have a reminder of vision goals. We'd have showcasing. There's an opportunity to see what's going on. We had sayings like this. This is a poster that says show the thing. This is a sticker that says the strategy is delivery. So it was just a reminder of some of our values and principles. And it was a good chance for other people to see what what each other were doing, so they could work out where they might align or see if they could follow up with each other. On the bottom right here, this is an away day with a client that I had last year, which was about sharing vision, goals, again, people showcasing what they were up to. We played a game for most of the day as well. It was a brilliant game around that me and a colleague created around the planning system in the UK. Which sounds dull, but it was great fun. But this is about long-term beats, unifying and inspiring purpose, clear direction, maybe quarterly review and collaboration setting, and aligning around big goals, sharing what people are doing, having some time together. Do you have these away days in your organisations? Couple, some not. Has anyone got no idea what their organisation is doing? And there's different ways to tell people. Again, this is true in your team as your organisation. So all hands meetings where you're in the same space as people, little and often, repeat. Online huddles, posters, messages in Slack or Teams or whatever instant messaging tool that you use, company newsletters, intranets, home pages. Helping, if you're a team, you can use this to help align others with your story and where you fit into the whole, just general visibility. And I think there's a real opportunity when we are distributed of finding new ways to reach people where they are. So stickers, I mean, I've got stickers all over my laptop. Do you use stickers in your organisations? Some, everyone loves stickers, don't they? Stickers to remind people of the value principles are always good. Posters are really good. Printed, does anyone have printed coffee mugs and things like that? Yeah, maybe reminding you of what the charter, vision charter, Zoom backgrounds, welcoming messages. There was, does anyone recognise, you might not, it was a while ago, top right-hand corner, it was a little printer. It was like a mini printer. Sadly, it's not around anymore, and you could just print out little messages. And I always remember when you were in, I'm probably aging myself, but when you were in offices that had fax machines, if a fax came in, you'd stop, and you would, because you hear it, it's physical, it makes this physical noise. And when we've got stuff online, it's very noisy, it's noisy in a way that you can't, it's just too much stuff. So having something that actually kind of sets off a noise that goes, oh, let's go and look at that thing, is a great way of kind of just reminding people of little messages. So finding new ways to reach people is important. So I'm going to talk about joining up teams. So we can work in a bubble, particularly when we are remote or hybrid, or that thing where we are. Does anyone do that kind of office timeshare where one team's in one day, a different team in a different day? Is anyone that? Or you're in all at the same time? Good. If you don't, even when we are in the same office at the same time, we are often quite heads down in our own teams with our own concerns, so we don't necessarily look out as much. So joining up is about effective collaboration across team boundaries to achieve common goals. So one way that I do this, I have a model called the Team Onion. And this is about being really clear about who you need to work with that's outside of your immediate team and being proactive about that. So it's a model to keep teams small, break down silos, and create shared responsibility across team boundaries. And when you are hybrid or remote, you often need to make an extra effort to reach people. So I'll go through these rings in this onion. So the first is core. So this is who is on your day-to-day core team. These are the people that you work with all the time. This is your team as you will know it, particularly kind of multidisciplinary agile teams. Your collaborators, so who do you need to regularly collaborate with? Where do you need to bring in specialist information? Maybe there's assurance, decisions, reduce dependencies and blockers. So are there people that if you don't work with them, the stuff will get missed out? You need to be really active about collaborating with them and finding a regular cadence and pattern in which to speak to them with. And the third ring is your supporters, and who do you need to align with or keep informed. So these might be your stakeholders, they might be other teams. These are people that you may share updates with demos, show and tells, week notes, anything like that. So this is about providing alignment with organisational goals or other parts of the organisation. And how are you going to collaborate with these people, and how do you create a regular cadence around that? So being really clear about where are the overlaps between your teams and other teams, and being really deliberate about reaching out to those people and finding time to connect, communicate, and collaborate with them. And you can find out more this at teamonion.works. I know that teams find it really useful, and it helps them move faster if they know who they're working with and they have good relationships with them. So bring collaborators and supporters along with you through things like regular collaboration alignment, through face-to-face over video, carving out time to do that. Regular show and tells, so it's a really great thing to do on a weekly or fortnightly basis, just to share what have we been doing, what have we learned, what's changed, what are we planning on doing next. Team pages, this I think it might be from Automatic. It's their handbook. Again, just publishing things so people can see what you're up to. And week notes. Does anyone do week notes? It might be quite a specific thing to some of the people I work with, which again is just a quick email to say, this is what we've been doing this week, this is what we're doing next week, this is what we've learned along the way, or this is stuff that's changed or people need to know about. And it's great to just have a distribution list to keep people up to date. If you do that weekly, it's also a good chance to reflect on what you've done that week. So the third thing here is bridging silos. So this is bringing people together from across organizations for support, learning, sharing, and scaling practices. So this is about who you need to collaborate. Sorry, this isn't about that. This is about making sure you're reaching people that do similar things to you. So who has silos in their organizations? Some people not. So you work on your own if you didn't put your hand up here. So silos, I say, the antithesis of empathy. So siloed language is when you kind of talk about other groups negatively. You go, oh, procurement are so difficult. Finance do this. HR do this. As opposed to speaking about individuals and more kind of supportive language. So silos, organizations have silos of knowledge, information, expertise, learning, support, and decision making. And it makes it really hard to work with other people. So we can join up through communities of practice. Who has communities of practice? Just a couple. These are great. I will talk about them I could talk about them for hours. I have talked about them for hours. It's a way of joining up people who do the same thing as each other. So groups of people connected through a shared passion for something they do and collectively improve as they interact regularly. So this is joining up people that maybe have similar roles or similar practices. If you're a front-end developer, you're joining up with other front-end developers. If you're a designer, you're joining up with other people that do design to meet and talk through problems, work on solutions, have buddies, mentors, one-to-one time, lots of things like that. And it's really, I spend a lot of time working with organizations, setting up communities of practice and setting up communities of practice initiatives. And this picture here, this is a group of product managers, mostly all worked in the same building as each other. And I said to them, oh, go and shake hands with somebody you've never met before. And they all started shaking hands with each other. And I was like, oh my, they've never met each other before. And very quickly you find, I was once in a room, same organization. We had a very early meeting where 4 product managers came along. 3 of them were all working on postcode lookups, completely different ways. Like, oh, maybe if you could learn from each other. So people connect with each other immediately. And I've got lots of information about communities of practice, that mostly linked to from this site, which is communitiesofpractice.work. They have lots of extra benefits as well. Support people grow capability, bridge knowledge, scale approaches, and enable collaboration. So great way to join people up across organizational silos, particularly when we don't see each other as much. We don't necessarily bump into each other over coffee or in hallways as much anymore. So with joining up, does your organisation have a messaging cadence that helps align everyone to a shared vision so people can situate themselves and align towards common goals? Do they have messaging and communication that reach people where they are? Is it discoverable? Does it come to you? Does it fit into your everyday routine? And is there support for joining up across teams and organisational silos? So opportunities to share across the organisation, show and tells, and across organisational barriers and boundaries like communities of practice. Okay, so I am now going to talk about creating opportunities for serendipity. So we talked about team memory, we talked about joining up. This is the fun one. Is it a fun one? I don't know. But look, ooh. Got to keep myself. I mean, I work on my own. I've got to keep myself interested. So this one is really big. This is a really big one that people miss in hybrid workplaces. So serendipity is, I mean, that's a naff, like, transition, sorry. The unexpected and fortuitous outcomes that come from chance encounters. So this is the spark that can happen through a random connection. So maybe an accidental discovery, or it's moments where relationships are built and magic can happen. So when we were in the physical space with each other, maybe we saw things on walls or bumped into people, you get a lot more opportunity for that to happen. When you're not in the same space as much anymore, it's harder. So, does anyone recognize these? Do you know that the Post-it note was born out of a serendipitous moment? So, Dr. Silver Spencer was trying to create a super sticky glue and ended up creating microspheres that you can unstick and restick. You may be familiar with that action. I can't help it, start pulling them off the packet. And another scientist was looking for a bookmark that wouldn't fall out of a book during hymn practice. And Dr. Silver was giving seminars, and because he didn't have a place for his microsphere, so he was just sharing what he'd been up to, and he was giving a seminar, and Art Fry, the other scientist, saw that and was like, that's the perfect thing, that's what I need, that will stop my bookmarks falling out of my hymn book. So that serendipitous moment, that moment where there was a problem solution somehow joined together, and it created what we know as the Post-it note. So what Steve Jobs says in this is, I think he said it, but he's definitely talked about this. This is in the book Creativity Inc. Definitely talks about this. So he said, if a building doesn't encourage collaboration, you lose a lot of innovation and the magic that's sparked by serendipity. So he designed buildings where, particularly for Pixar, I think originally they had the loos were like really far away from everyone. So everyone had to walk through the building and walk past lots of people and see people until people started complaining and said, can you move them closer? But he would create this flow so people would bump into each other. So I'm going to just update this and say an organisation, because if we're not necessarily working in buildings, then we need to find ways to help, to encourage this serendipity, this collaborative serendipity. So there's this term, assisted serendipity. So this is about creating the space and opportunities where serendipity could happen. So we have to work a little bit harder. This term I took from a blog post by a guy called John Goulart at Etsy. And it was called Fostering Peer-to-Peer Connections in Your Organization. It's from a few years ago. It said you can't create serendipity, but you can design for opportunities for them to happen. So is this about creating space for unstructured conversations between peers to happen, or allowing new connections to form between people that wouldn't otherwise meet, and develop a habit of taking time to build trust? So does anyone do random coffees in their organizations? So random coffee is brilliant, I think. So it's where you pair two people up randomly, and they just meet up and have a coffee, have a chat. And it gives you the chance. This quote is this is Michigan University. They had a initiative called Innovate Brew, and they said it's giving people the permission to talk to strangers. So we don't always go up to people we don't know, but if you're paired up and say, hey, just have some time, have some coffee, have a chat, it really helps create connections and trust. And I do this remotely in my meetup, Agile in the Ether. This is from the Random Coffee channel. We use a tool on Slack called Donut that randomly pairs people once every 2 weeks. They meet up, have a coffee. I get them to post these cheesy photos and just talk a little, say, oh, we talked about these things. And they can talk about whatever. It can be about work, it can be about whatever they're up to, personal, there's no agenda. And it really just helps build connections. And often it's easier to build connections in a smaller group than it is in a larger group. So if we can build those small connections, it gives people then the confidence to talk in larger groups as well. Also say find ways to connect that aren't just looking at a video call, because we do that a lot. So this is from a channel in my Agile and Ether community, which is called Daily Outside Photo, which originally was to try and get people to go outside, just because we were all stuck at home during lockdowns. But it also, and it's carried on since then, but it's just people share a bit of, where they are and other people. It just gives you a way to connect that's not just work. So I will be putting pictures of Örebro on there later and asking people to guess where I am, see if they can guess. Doing crosswords together, getting outside. We have a daily tunes channel as well where people share music. There's pet channels, stuff that people are going to really engage. And once you can meet in that way, it makes it easier to do work. Has anyone heard of Automatic? Has anyone heard of WordPress? There you go. So Automatic are the company that started WordPress. It's open source. It's a complicated business model, I think. So they've been fully distributed from when they started in 2005. So they get together. They call it the Automatics Grand Meetup. They get together for a week somewhere in the world. They work on projects, take classes, and share meals, and create bonds that influence people all year long. So that getting people together, if you can have like away days or half days or just time for people to connect in a way that's slightly different from doing work, it helps create those opportunities for those serendipitous moments to happen. So they always do that somewhere in the world. They have smaller meetups as well. So invest in assisting serendipity. It's really important. So for serendipity, my questions to you is, are there opportunities for teams to put their work in the open for others to see? So where it can be found, where it can be stumbled across, can people hear what you're saying so maybe that magic can spark? Are there opportunities for people to have time and space for the potential of serendipity, the chance to bump into people and ideas outside of their everyday? So those things like communities of practice, those things like away days, those things like show and tells. And is there opportunities for people to meet each other outside of their normal day-to-day work? Again, just other ways for people to connect. We're really, if you spend a lot of time on video calls, meetings have become very transactional. You turn up. The thing that I found, particularly running online meetups, is that people used to turn up, a bit early. They'd be there for 5 minutes. You'd have a bit of chit chat, and now people turn up on the dot or just after because they've literally just come from another meeting, and they need just a comfort break before they come into the next one. And we are back to back. Meetings are very transactional. We don't have that downtime. I see some nods, so people are feeling some of that. We don't have that kind of chat time that we used to have. Or even that, waiting outside a meeting room for it to be free and you're just chatting. We don't have that anymore. Before I finish, I wanted to do a shout out for work friends, because this is important. I think it builds on everything else, all this point of connection. Social relationships are important, and the reason is, this is Margaret Heffernan, who is a management organisational consultant. She's brilliant. She's written some great books. She's got some great talks. Check her out. She says companies don't have ideas, only people do, and what motivates people are the bonds and loyalties and trusts they develop between each other. This is from a talk called Forget the Pecking Order at Work, and it's about teams working together. So our company ideas are our people, and the trust helps build that. As well as that, this is from The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. He says the people who survive stress the best are the ones who actually invest in their social investments, increase their social investments in the middle of stress. So when we have work friends, other people around us, it helps us be more resilient. This is important for our organisations. Conversely to that, people who aren't connected don't do so well. So if people don't feel they have the connections to others they would like, they don't perform very well. There's actually, I think I read in a book whose name I can't remember right now, but it will come to me in just a moment, talked about if we don't feel supported by the people around us, we actually feel rejected. So it's like it's worse. So if we feel rejected at work, we don't feel supported at work, we don't do very well. So this is some research from a paper called No Employee in Ireland, Workplace Loneliness and Job Performance, where they surveyed 672 employees across 143 work groups and their supervisors to find out how connected or lonely they felt and with their job performance. So a lot of organisations I see aren't giving people the time to make friends, or don't see that there's a real value in social connection in the workplace. And there's actually research that shows why that's bad, why people not feeling connected is bad for organisations. So make time to build friends at work. There was an HBR article that says workplace friends are more committed, communicate better, and encourage each other. So make time to build connections, sharing food, a fika, that's Swedish, right? Which goes beyond just, it is about connecting with people. There's a term called commensality, which is about sharing of food, which Nomi Leith says is a powerful means by which humans create, express, and solidify feelings of mutual trust, intimacy, and kinship. So eating together is quite important. In-person events, we've talked about Automatic's big events. Communities of practice, so joining people up across different parts of the organisation to create connections. Random coffees, such a good initiative. I would say even doing that in your team is a great thing to do if you don't meet socially as a team, but it's a great thing to try out. Does anyone do walking calls or walking meetings? A few? Good. It's a great way to connect with people in a different way, and you talk differently when you're walking next to somebody. And things like hobbies and games and online. I just keep looking at Nancy every time I say games. Different ways to connect with each other through different things. So a lot of people, I hear this a lot. People say, didn't we get all of this for free before? So all of these ways for connecting, all of these serendipitous moments, finding out what was going on. And we got a lot of things. If we are all co-located in the same office, there's a lot of things that we can take for granted. Like we can see stuff all around us. We bump into walls information, we bump into people, we're able to build relationships in a different way. But I'd always say if we're in the office, it's not free. We're still paying for the office. We're still paying for the time to get to the office. It's it's investment in a different place. So we might have got that with that investment, but we need to make time to invest in things in a different way. So we need to be intentional. So in a hybrid organization, we need to invest time and money and effort into maintaining and reinforcing team memory, joining up across organizations and creating the opportunities for serendipity. And hopefully some of the stuff I've shared today is helpful. There are some PDF downloads on my site here, which is on my blog, which is emilyweber.co.uk, and there is also a Miro board exercise around team memory, so an exercise where a workshop where your team can look at how you maintain and reinforce your team memory and find gaps and find ways to do it. So maybe if you do retrospectives, that's a useful place to do that. So thank you. That QR code is also there.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have time for a few questions, but we'll take the questions over the microphone so everyone can hear you. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we'll come to you with a microphone.
Or anything you want to share that you do that you think others should know about.
You all just want coffee?
One of the questions that I get a lot is how to cope with introverts, like this lovely group of people. No, just kidding. But because not everybody's that fond of going crazy and drinking coffee with strangers. So are there other ways to help people who are not that, or maybe a little bit socially awkward?
Yeah.
How can you help them in the best way possible?
I think in our day-to-day when we're doing things like workshops, like always allowing asynchronous activities to happen. So if you're using, or any kind of workshop, the thinking time can be useful to have asynchronously. So think about this question, take time on your own, write answers, we'll come back together and discuss it. Can be a useful thing to do. In any workshop, at the beginning of a workshop, if you allow people time on their own to think and write their own sticky notes, it actually gives everyone an equal voice and means that those introverts can also add their voice to the conversation rather than be overpowered by others. I would say with things like random coffee, and I had the same question when running random coffee in the community that I run. It's like there are certain people that don't necessarily feel as comfortable. So what can really help is giving people some guidance or some questions to ask up front. So if you arm someone with, when you meet, ask this question, it can start a conversation going rather than meet this person. You go.
You mean I have to do small talk?
Yeah. But then also things like eating and drinking coffee gives a distraction, and walking gives a distraction. So it's other ways. We all do this now. Being on a screen, particularly if you don't turn off your self view, where you just end up staring at yourself. It's like, you don't have meetings with a mirror behind the person where you can just see yourself the whole time and you're checking your hair. So just that different ways to interact, and I think things like the daily outside photo, I think really starts to help break that down as well.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Over here.
Thanks, Emily, for such a great talk. I was wondering about on the topic of serendipity, and kind of back to the example, as you mentioned there earlier on regarding Miro, and how we use digital collaborative tools and kind of get this cognitive overload of things. And I was wondering there, because I know for a fact numerous examples in my experience working with colleagues in, let's say, using Teams or Slack for that matter, that these collaborative tools, we have a lot of channels, we have a lot of information all over the place and so on. And just as you said there, to try and make that space to see, can we stumble upon, can we understand each other even more? But what I most often see especially looking at these tools, is that most people or teams kind of go back to themselves, back to that inner core of that onion, like, okay, we can't handle all this information right now.
Yeah.
Do you have any, I don't know, tips or tricks around that?
And I've seen this. I know that when I was working with Automatic, for example, they put everything. They have their P2 wiki. They put everything on their P2 wiki, and they won't at people because they don't want to ping them. They don't want to disturb them, which I get. But then also people can't find information. I think some of it is, and Slack as well. Slack is like. You get notification anxiety as well. It's just stuff. So some of that, I think, is about being a little bit more purposeful about what you're doing in what situation and when. So with the Team Onion, for example, we know what we're doing in our team. We know the people we definitely want to reach, and we are going to set up. We'll talk to them once every other week, or we'll have a collaborative session here, and we'll make sure that they're included. And then on a wider kind of supporter ring, it might be, we're going to do a show and tell every 2 weeks. We're going to do it in this format, and if people come along and hear about it, that's great. And if stuff comes out of that, that's great. So I think it's about being a little bit deliberate about that stuff. There is a problem in, like, I do this myself. It's like, oh, I remember that thing. Now, where is that thing? Is it in Slack? Is it in Teams? Is it in Miro? Is it in here? Is it in here? And it just becomes really impossible. But if on your team you are that kind of now stuff, the stuff you need to refer to every day, if you are saying, right, in the morning, we're going to, if you do stand-ups, you might open up your workflow and say, this is where we are right now. Let's kind of make sure we check in and focus on that. I think being deliberate about the things that you know you need to look at. But yeah, it's hard. And then turn off the internet. No.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I do like these green seats from here. It's a very calming view.
Hi, and thank you for a great speech. Just thinking about that, when you talk that Teams meetings can be that transactional, you go back to back, and trying to remember the days before the pandemic when you actually had those meetings in the office, but not scheduled in your calendar. What do you think is like, is a problem that you have everything scheduled and go back to back? I mean, previously we probably went back to back, but we didn't have it scheduled. Have you thought about, like, is it adding to your stress levels just to see that in your calendar, or is it actually good for your being organized? Or have you thought anything about, like, what is that doing to people?
So I really appreciate that I work for myself, and no one else has access to my calendar. Like, I use Calendly, calendar booking tools. Great thing about Calendly is it allows you to put buffers in, so people can't book back-to-back meetings. And I remember when everyone had access to your calendar, and stuff would just pop in, and you'd be like, "That, I don't know how I'm supposed to get from that room to that room in different buildings in that time." And I think that is stressful. I think when you're in the office, you do end up having breaks and chatting to people in a different way. I think the thing that really suffers by not having any breaks, aside from the context switching, is a lot. So it's every time you context switch, it takes you a period of time to get into the new thing. So even if you're coming from one meeting to another, you've got, like, where was I? What are we doing? What's the context of this conversation versus that conversation? But the thing that really suffers, I think, is creativity. And in anyone's work, like that time, that non-scheduled time to let stuff mull over, that isn't just, oh, you leave it to when you're having a shower in the morning and that's when you do your best thinking. Like, you do need you need some slack time for your brain to work things out and for things to bubble up. And that might be you know, I used to work with people that every time they went out to have a smoke, that's when they would work through all their ideas, and they'd come back from their cigarette break and they'd be like, I've got it. And so I think that's what really suffers. So first of all, it's that the social interaction suffers because we are straight into the next meeting. Or even if you go, oh, we're going to leave 10 minutes at the end, it's like everything's like, we've got to do this, and finish. So social interaction suffers, and your time to think and be creative suffers. And I know people try and also block out time in their calendar, and some organizations people just put stuff in, and it can be hard to have really strict rules about it, but it's worthwhile.